All right, so we're going to begin with why study nutrition and Bible principles. So, of course, that's going to be a little bit of overlap from the last section, but there will be no questions about organisms and immunity, etc. Okay, so we're going to begin again with why study nutrition. Can anybody tell me why you should study nutrition? Anybody? Yes?
Kind of the same reasons from last.
Exactly, the same 3 reasons from last time. First of all, you want to be prepared. A prepared Christian. Then you want to be an effective Christian. Then you want to be a compassionate Christian. We talked about this with pathology. We want you to be well-rounded and prepared. Okay, so we also want you to be effective longer. An effective Christian, so that means you have the ability, maybe this time, the ability physically to serve God longer. And then compassionate, that one doesn't quite apply as much. So which of the 3 do you think applies the most to nutrition? Effectiveness. Effectiveness. You want to be healthy into your upper years. And a lot of that does involve diet and nutrition and avoiding the pitfalls of middle and later middle age. Okay, so a lot of that involves diet. As a young person, you are able to get by with a lot of poor nutrition habits, and they will catch up with you. Okay, trust me, I know from experience. Okay, so let's talk about Bible principle. Now, you read the idea of diet being a matter of Christian liberty when I had you read Dr. Cloud's article on alternative medicine. So there is balance. One of the key things I want you to learn from this section is balance. Okay, and that's balance not only in what you eat, but also in how you approach the idea of diet. Both ideas, not just in what you eat, but how you approach the idea of diet. We can take diet to extremes, and that can be a pitfall as well. And then on the other hand, we can ignore diet, have poor dietary habits, eat poorly, and suffer for it, especially in the future. So make sure you have a balance. I am not advocating anything odd, or I'm not advocating that diet can replace medicine, not at all. But it is something that you should pay some attention to. So let's begin with, what does the Bible say about eating? What does the Bible say about diet, etc.? The first one that I want you to realize is that what you eat is important. What you eat is important. Remember that God is concerned with every area of your life. So diet is not something that you can ignore. What you eat is important. First thing that comes to my mind is 1 Samuel 28:22. Okay, meat for strength is what that verse refers to. I'm going to go through these rather quickly. But, of course, we do need to eat meat. I am also not advocating being a vegetarian or a vegan or whatever extreme that can be taken to. After the fall, God established what? The eating of meat. All right? That's because after the fall, our bodies were no longer what? Perfect. And so a lot of times meat is necessary so that you get adequate amounts of protein. And we'll be talking about protein in just a little bit. Proteins are made up of 20 different amino acids, something that you're going to have to learn, okay? And 9 of them are essential, meaning your body cannot manufacture them. So guess what you have to do? Eat them, all right? So meat, what you eat is important. And here's again the idea of balance. We do need to eat meat, We need to continually replace and replenish our body cells and our body tissues, and that requires protein. And the Bible already tells us that. Meat for strength. What do you think your muscles consist of? Protein. They are protein, okay? Then, of course, all of the dietary laws, in particular in Leviticus chapter 7. Now, we know the dietary laws of the Old Testament are not in effect for us today, correct? But that doesn't mean we can't take get some value out of them and see what were the Israelites forbidden to eat. Why were the Israelites forbidden to eat it? Let's talk about pork for a second. Why do you think the Israelites were forbidden to eat pork? Because pigs were considered to be what? Unclean. Is that true in the United States today? Is pork contaminated and unclean in our culture? No. So to me, that doesn't apply. All right? So there's all kinds of things, though, that we can learn about how to cook meat and so forth, draining the blood, etc. So it's not that we're going to totally disregard dietary laws. We're not going to use them in the same manner. They still, what you eat is important. How you cook it and food safety is still important. A lot of the dietary laws were directly related to food safety, just like quarantine. Quarantine was a Bible principle, okay, and that was related to good health. So we can still take some note of the dietary laws of the Old Testament, even though they're not prohibitive to us anymore. Another Bible principle. This, of course, deals with gluttony. So how much you eat is important. Gluttony is a sin. Overeating, overindulgence, whatever you want to call it. The Bible calls it gluttony. Gluttony is a sin. Lots of passages. We've got, of course, Proverbs 23, verse 2 and verse 21. That passage in Proverbs refers to, if you're a man given to appetite, what does it say? Put a knife to your throat, okay? That's talking about all kinds of appetites, whether it's eating or whatever. Pleasure seeking, even immorality, that's not controlling appetites, and that is sinful. Then we have, of course, Philippians 4:5, everything in what? Moderation. The Bible teaches us to suppress, if we want to use that word, our appetites, and that, of course, includes eating. The Bible makes mention in Philippians 3:19 about apostates, their God being their belly. Okay, and that, of course, is also not just eating, but appetites, which includes eating, should not be overindulged. This is also in Deuteronomy 21:20. So gluttony is a sin. What you eat is important, and how much you eat is important. Another Bible principle is that everything we do, so that includes eating, is to be done to the glory of God. We all know 1 Corinthians 10:31. What does it say? Whether therefore ye eat or drink, or whatsoever ye do, do all to the glory of God. So that's direct command regarding eating. Okay, so then that would be the opposite. Bringing glory to God by everything we do includes eating. Okay, so our third principle is everything we do, including eating and drinking, should be done to the glory of God. The direct opposite of overindulgence and gluttony in the first principle or the second principle. Another principle is diet shouldn't hinder you or others. We should be an example. We should maintain our Christian testimony. Diet shouldn't hinder you as a Christian or others around you. Think about Hebrews 12:1, laying aside every what? Weight, no pun intended, but kind of intended. Okay, it's not talking about body weight, but eating could be a weight that hinders you spiritually. And then, of course, 1 Corinthians 6, 19 and 20. What does that tell us? Our body is the temple of the Holy Spirit, and how we treat our body is important to God. That, of course, would include diet, poor eating habits, being overweight, etc. Also, we don't want to hinder others. So diet shouldn't hinder you as a Christian or those around you. Of course, Paul talks about your testimony. Paul talks about even abstaining from meats so that you don't offend Christians who are having a trouble. At the time, they're having trouble with idol worship and meats being offered to idols and so forth. And so that's in Acts chapter 15, in particular verse 29. We also have 1 Corinthians 9:27 and Acts 2:46. So what you eat, your diet, your weight, whatever, shouldn't hinder you or others around you. The last principle is the principle of Christian liberty. Okay? What we eat, we do have liberty. We are not bound by the Old Testament laws, but that doesn't mean, on the other hand, that God's not concerned about our health. 1 Corinthians 10:23. So there are things that the Bible says about being healthy and what we eat and how we eat. But there is no specific Bible diet. Okay, there was a little bit of a trend a few years ago. What would Jesus eat? Well, anyway. So let's keep going then. Those are the Bible principles that regard to eating or overeating. Yes?
What was the Bible reference for the third one?
The third one? You mean diet shouldn't hinder you or others?
Everything we do.
Oh, okay. Glory of God. That's 1 Corinthians 10:31.
Okay, thank you.
1 Corinthians 10:31. Whether therefore you eat or drink or whatsoever you do, do all to the glory of God. So nutrition can be an important topic. Okay? So let's go through nutrition and let me get through the nutrients. So today I want to go through what is nutrition, what are nutrients, what are essential nutrients, and how does the body use each nutrient. So we're going to begin with, as usual, definitions. I want to define some of my terms. The first is nutrition. We're talking about nutrition in this section. What do I mean by nutrition? What is good nutrition? What does that word mean? Nutrition can be defined as the evaluation of food and drink requirements to maintain well-being and good health. The evaluation of food and drink requirements to maintain well-being and good health. So it's an evaluation. What am I eating? How much am I eating? It's the evaluation of food and drink requirements to maintain well-being and good health. That brings us to another definition. What is health? It's kind of a vague thing. Nutrition can be a little vague. What is health? Health is kind of synonymous with the word wellness. Health is the condition of the body with regard to wellness. So good health means your body is functioning well, you're feeling well. So health is synonymous with the word wellness. The last definition is nutrient. What are nutrients? What am I talking about? Nutrients are chemical substances. Okay, so we're going to do some chemistry a little bit. A lot of your body function is, again, all about chemistry. This time we'll be talking about molecules, chemical substances taken into the body. So that's something that you eat. It's a chemical substance taken into the body, needed by the body to maintain good health. Chemical substances taken into the body, needed by the body to maintain good health. So nutrient, chemical substance taken into the body, needed by the body to maintain good health. That is a nutrient, yes?
Can you repeat the definition of
Yes, it's the condition of the body with regard to wellness. That means your body is functioning well and you feel well. You have energy and so forth. All right, so now we're going to talk about the nutrients themselves. And this is a little bit of chemistry, warning, science content approaching. Okay, so there are different kinds of food substances and there's different kinds of chemical substances, so I need to further explain this to you. Basically, we're going to begin with the fact that there are 4 biomolecules. 4 biomolecules. All I did was take the word bio, molecules, this chalk is really scratchy, biomolecules, and this is any compound produced by or needed by the body. So this is a bigger term. All of the molecules associated with living things, not just what you eat, are called biomolecules. So this means molecules that are associated with living things. So this is the big umbrella category. And there are 4 basic categories that we're going to divide our nutrients into. The first one is nucleic acids. Can anybody give me an example of a nucleic acid? Yes? DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid, and RNA. Remember, DNA is the molecule of heredity. DNA is where our genetic code exists in the DNA molecule, of course, which is in the chromosomes of our cells. Something that the body needs, not something that we are going to talk about with respect to eating, however, but it is a biomolecule. The next 3 you're going to recognize, and the next 3 are more applicable to what we're talking about. The next category is proteins. Proteins are necessary. They are nutrients as well, but there are proteins that are not nutrients. Protein is another huge umbrella category of biomolecules. Proteins include what makes up your muscles, it includes what makes up your hair, it includes what makes up your cells, it includes the proteins that circulate in your blood, like the immunoglobulins or antibodies. It includes the clotting proteins. It's a huge category of very important molecules. So that's one reason why it's going to be in both categories. It is also a nutrient. Another one you're going to recognize is carbohydrates. This is another big umbrella. Not all carbohydrates are going to be in our nutrient category, but that's another type. And the last is lipids. So this is the broad category, biomolecules. These are any compound that are associated with living things. They may make up living things, they may be produced by living things, and of course they can be needed to be eaten by living things. Then we're going to get smaller and smaller, and we're going to talk about another category is nutrients. Nutrients, the difference is these are all nutrients, but not all nutrients are needed to be ingested. So this is something that we have to take in. Nutrients are chemical substance taken into the body, needed by the body to maintain good health, as I previously defined. So nutrients pretty much consist of these plus some other minor compounds that we're going to talk about. Then even more specific than that is what I call the 3 classes of food. And these are the classes that we refer to when we're talking about diet. And these are proteins, carbs, and fats. And these are the 3 that we're going to detail in a little bit more as far as our digestive. Carbs, of course, is short for carbohydrate, and we commonly call them carbs when we're referring to diet. And then proteins are proteins. If you paid any attention at all to anything about diet, you recognize these. And the third is fats. Fats belong in the lipid category. Okay? They're one type of fat. It's called a triglyceride. All right, so all of our molecules associated with living things are called biomolecules. There are the four main classes of biomolecules. We're going to center in on nutrients. And today, then next class period, we're going to talk about how your body digests all these different classes of foods. Okay, so we're going to talk about nutrients and nutrition. Right, first of all, nutrition. Remember, nutrition is the evaluation of food and drink requirements to maintain well-being and good health. So I want to talk for just briefly an introduction to the idea of nutrition. Nutrition, make sure you know the definition. It's an evaluation of what we eat and what we drink. How is it affecting our health? The first point I want you to write down about nutrition is that good nutrition requires a proper balance. Good nutrition requires a proper balance. That is the key to good nutrition, is proper balance. That is the key to good nutrition. As I mentioned in the introduction a few minutes ago, balance in what we eat and a balance in how we approach our diet. We can't be extreme in how we approach our diet. And then specifically, we need to have a balance of what we eat because we want to maintain good health. So we want a balance of these different foods. And we need to have a general idea of what each of these different foods do so that we don't consume too much or in the wrong proportions, and so that we also don't go way out of balance and think that it's spiritual to be on this specific diet. Okay? The Bible does not give us a specific diet, and diet is a matter of Christian liberty. However, God is still concerned with it, and you should be too. So the key to good nutrition is a proper balance. Okay? A second point. Balance involves both what we eat and how much we eat. This balance that I'm talking about involves not just what we eat, but how we eat. And nutrition is changing every day. One scientific study will tell you how bad this type of fat is. And then the same fat could be involved in a different study and saying, but we still need to eat some. Okay, and then of course there's caffeine. One study says caffeine is bad, don't drink it at all. Another study says drinking 2 cups of coffee is the recommended maximum, and there's all kinds of things. Who are you going to believe? What are you going to do? Well, you're not going to pay a whole lot of attention to the latest diet fad. You're not going to pay a lot of attention to the latest thing that's bad or the latest thing that's good. Why? That's all man's, and it changes and it comes and goes. You go nuts trying to keep up with scientific research in the United States. And a lot of it is funded by companies that are going to profit if you eat that way and so forth. So you can't trust all these different studies and everything that you read, certainly not on the internet, okay? And you can't believe a lot of the advertisements. So it involves proper balance. And this balance includes what you eat and how much you eat. As far as what you eat, we need a balance of essential nutrients. We need a balance of essential nutrients. And then we also need a balance of how much we eat. Is there such a thing as eating too little, eating too little? Of course there is. Okay? And obviously there's a lot to do with eating too much. Okay? So we want a proper balance, and this balance includes not only how much you eat, but what you eat. So we were going to talk about essential nutrients. Okay? So the second thing we want to talk about is nutrients. Repeat the definition again. A nutrient is a chemical substance taken into the body, needed by the body for use, needed to maintain good health. Now there are 6 nutrients, okay, that we're going to go through today, hopefully get through them all. 6 nutrients. I'm going to list them in order of importance. Okay, the 6 nutrients are, number 1, water. Now, water is not a biomolecule in the sense that it's a complex, it doesn't fit anywhere. It's not an organic molecule at all. It's a very simple molecule. You all know its molecular formula, H2O. It's not a complex molecule like these are. These are very large, complicated molecules. In fact, sometimes they're called macromolecules because they're so large, and they involve repeating chains and all kinds of chemistry. So our first nutrient, though, is water. I have to put it here, not because it's a biomolecule, but because it's so essential. All right, so water is the most important nutrient. Then the next one is proteins. I'm rating them number 2. We're going to go through each one of these, talk about why, what they are and why they're important. Then the next one I'm going to put is carbohydrates, carbs. Then lipids. These are your fats and oils and so forth. Not all of them are fat in the sense that we're talking. Then these other 2 are very important, but they're only consumed in trace amounts. The first one is vitamins. Who can give me the second one? Yes.
Minerals.
Yes. So number 5 and 6, vitamins and minerals. These are needed. They're very important, but they're needed in much smaller amounts. There's a 7th substance that you consume, but it's not technically a nutrient, so we're going to call it a 7th, and we're going to put it in parentheses. It's not really a nutrient because you don't digest it. You just pass it through. It's dietary fiber. But fiber is an important thing to consume, even though it's not technically a nutrient, because you will not digest it. You will not get any nutrition from it. So those are our 6 nutrients. All right, so when we talk about nutrients, these are chemical substances taken into the body. This is very important. It's essential. These are our 3 main classes of food that we're interested in how much we eat of them. These we have to pick up along the way in small amounts, or we're going to have some specific issues. They're called vitamin deficiency diseases and so forth. Not something that we see in our country very much because we're on the overeat end of the spectrum. All right, so then when we eat these different nutrients, I want to divide them into 2. The first is essential nutrients. Okay, essential. And I'm going to define this a little bit more specifically than just the grammar definition. If we talk about being essential in general, we're just talking about something that's needed. But with nutrition, the idea of being an essential nutrient is very specific. What is an essential nutrient? What does it mean to be essential with respect to nutrients? Yes?
It has to be digested.
Oh, okay, it needs to be ingested, so of course digested. So this is something that you have to eat All right, so essential nutrients are nutrients that must be eaten because the body cannot manufacture them, either at all or at least not in enough quantity. So essential nutrients are nutrients that must be ingested because the body doesn't make them or doesn't make them in enough quantity. The first is water. You must ingest water. Recommended amount, 64 ounces a day. Most of you do not consume enough water, and that's going to be one of the things that you need to do right now to improve your dietary health is drink more water. Okay, and caffeinated drinks, myself included here, do not count in your 64 ounces. As a matter of fact, you should probably replace the ounces that you drank of a caffeinated beverage. All right, but water, we'll talk about that more. Then the next essential nutrients are called amino acids. There are 9 that are classified as essential, even though there are 20 different ones. Amino acids are the building blocks that make up proteins. So people who are vegetarian have to eat certain plant proteins together in order to try to get these 9 essential. Or they're going to be protein deficient, and when you're protein deficient, then your body starts taking protein from body tissues, okay, which is not a good idea. So you're going to lose muscle mass and so forth. So then you have 9 different amino acids that your body is not able to produce, so you need to eat adequate amounts of proteins to make sure you're getting those 9 essential amino acids. Then there are fatty acids. Fatty acids. Have you ever heard of omega-3? That is an essential fatty acid. There are 2 or 3 of these. I'm going to go with 3 that are essential. Okay. Fatty acids form what are called dietary fats. Okay. Not just the triglycerides, but they're also involved in other lipids. So these are the building blocks of your dietary fats. And I thought fat was bad. In excess, everything is bad. Fats, of course, we tend to eat fatty foods, and they're the wrong kinds of fat, so there's a whole lot more to it than just don't eat fat. Another thing that is essential that must be ingested is most of your vitamins and minerals. And we live in the day and age in the United States of fortified food substances where a lot of these are added. The problem with that, however, is they have to be in the correct form so that your body can actually use them. Okay, so fortified cereal is okay, but a lot of times you're not be able to process those vitamins. All right, so then with your nutrients, essential nutrients must be ingested. Why? You can't make enough of them on your own, or you can't make them at all on your own. Then the second point, other nutrients that are not considered essential can be manufactured by the liver from other ingested substances. I mentioned there are 20 different amino acids. Your body can rearrange molecules and manufacture. Your body's very good at taking apart molecules and putting them together to something that it actually needs. So the other nutrients, your body is able to manufacture them in your liver. Okay? So Anybody notice a missing nutrient that we don't have anything for? Which one is missing? Of our main classes of food, the 3 main classes of food, which one's missing? Joseph? Carbs. Why are carbs missing? They don't have to be ingested. The liver is very good at rearranging other compounds, and we get more than enough carbohydrates in our diets. Okay? So carbohydrate is missing. So these other nutrients will be manufactured by the body. These are the essential ones that you need to consume in your diet. The last thing I want to talk about before we're going to go through each of these in more detail, the last thing I want to talk about as far as nutrition and nutrients in general is that your body has 3 major uses for what you eat. So there are 3 main uses for what you eat. Why do you need to eat? What's your body going to do with what you eat? A lot of this is obvious, but there are 3 main uses of the nutrients that you eat. So these are broad, and then later on we're going to talk about which one of these it does which, how many, some of them do both, etc. The first need for your body is maintenance of body tissues. You need to eat for maintenance of body tissues. Most of this is from proteins, but also fats. You have essential fats that are necessary for good health, especially when you are in the growth stages. Most of you are still have the potential to grow a little more. Your body's not completely mature till age 25. Okay, so unless you're an older college freshman, you're all still growing. Okay? So maintenance of body tissues, most of this from proteins, but also from fats. This involves 2 things. I just mentioned the first, growth. Your body needs more nutrients when you are still growing. As you mature, you stop growing, and that's of course when your poor dietary habits catch up with you, because then your metabolism slows down and it's time to pay the piper. Okay? Growth. Growth, when your body needs to produce new cells and new tissues at a relatively rapid rate. When you are growing, your body is producing new cells and new tissues at a relatively rapid rate. Then the second, we're talking about maintenance, the second thing as far as maintaining our bodies is repair and replacement of both damaged and old cells. Repair and replacement of both old or damaged cells. We've got to maintain our body tissues. Tissues, of course, are made up of individual cells. Of course, in this, we need the raw materials to make cells and to grow tissues and to repair and replace older or damaged tissues. Most of this is proteins, but cells all have a lipid membrane, so you need both protein and lipids for this. The second main need for nutrients or use for nutrients is energy. Most of this comes from carbohydrate. Proteins, I want you to associate with building your body tissues and maintaining your body tissues. Carbohydrates, on the other hand, you need to associate with energy. So most of this is from carbohydrate sources, but also from fats. Why does your body need energy? The first, but probably the least obvious, is cellular metabolism. All of your cells are functioning, some of your cells are dividing, and so forth. All body cells need energy. Every living thing functions using energy. So cellular metabolism. Just even that, you don't think about it, just even being alive at the cellular level requires energy. The next is body heat. Your metabolism, one of your major functions of your metabolism is to maintain a constant or relatively constant internal environment, and that involves your body temperature. The third and the most obvious is body movement. So we need energy at the cellular level to maintain our cells, our cellular metabolism. We also use our metabolism to produce a body temperature so we can maintain the proper environment for our cells. And last, we need it for movement. What kind of movement? Both voluntary movement, moving your body, moving your arms and legs, your external body movement, but also your internal body movement, which is involuntary. Voluntary, of course, this is kind of with the nervous system. Voluntary requires thought and decision. Involuntary is part of your normal functioning that you do not think about, that happens all on its own. Then the last function is the last use of nutrients is proper cell function, proper chemistry in your cell function. A lot of cellular function is at the molecular level. We're talking about chemical reactions. So just maintaining proper cell function and proper body function at both the cellular level and the organ level, your organs functioning properly, your tissues functioning properly, requires nutrients. This involves proteins, but also the vitamins and minerals. Okay, a lot of body chemistry involved here, so you have to eat not only to maintain your body tissues, not only for energy, but also to maintain your function at the proper levels and proper amounts. That would be proteins, but also the vitamins and minerals. So that's our introduction dealing with what are nutrients, what is nutrition, what is the key to nutrition? Proper balance. In what way? Both in how we approach our diet and in what we actually eat in our diet. Do you understand that? Proper balance. A lot of things involve proper balance. We don't want to take anything to an extreme. That includes our approach on our diet. We don't want to put too much importance on it, but on the other hand, we can't ignore it. And then also balance in actually what we are eating. Okay? So now I'm going to go through the 6 nutrients. What are they? Why are they important? And recommendations. So we're going to begin with water. Everybody knows what water is, so we can skip that part. We'll begin with water. And it's on our essential nutrient list. Since water is on our essential nutrient list, I want to be specific about it. Why is water essential? Why do we have to ingest, on average, 64 ounces of water? How many of you drink that much? I can put my hand up because I've been paying attention to it since New Year's. Okay? So drinking adequate water is important for 2 reasons. Okay, we're talking about water. The first reason that it is essential, we have to ingest adequate amounts of it, is because it's called the solvent of the body. I keep talking about, yes?
Isn't there like a ratio of how much you weigh, how much you drink, how?
Right, but we don't need to get that specific. Especially as Americans, we all drink too much other liquid, too many other liquids, and not enough just plain water. Because we don't want to be consuming too many calories, and if we consume calories in what we eat, what we drink, and in what we eat, and so forth. Yeah, you can be very specific, but I don't think it's necessary to be that specific. You just probably want to determine to drink more water, because unless you're deliberately drinking water, you're not going to be consuming enough. Okay? And right now you're young, But eventually you're going to have to pay the piper because your metabolism, here's what we're talking about, it's the solvent of the body. Your metabolism isn't going to function properly. Your cells aren't going to function properly. Your liver and how you break down your food is not going to function properly. And all of those things will catch up with you. So first reason the water is important, it is literally the solvent of the body. A lot of chemistry. Where do you think those chemical reactions have to take place? Those substances have to first be dissolved in water. A lot of your chemistry involves solutions, okay? And so you have to have enough water to facilitate many, many of your chemical reactions in your body, both in your digestive tract, that's at the organ level, but even inside your cells. You need adequate amounts of water, especially to properly process your food, your digestive system, and also to properly, for your enzymes to function. Enzymes, guess what those are? Proteins. Enzymes facilitate many of the chemical reactions in your body. Probably the most common thing you might think of with enzymes are your digestive enzymes, right? And we'll talk about digestive enzymes later. So the water is literally the solvent of the body. It's necessary for many body functions and for many cellular functions. So I'm talking at different levels, aren't I? I'm talking about overall functions like digestion, and I'm also talking about functions we're not even thinking about. We're talking about functions of individual cells and individual cell health. We need enough water. So a couple ideas here. First of all, cells themselves need water to perform their chemical reactions. I already said that. I'll make points of it so you all write it down. All right, so cells need water to perform their individual chemical reactions. Another point is many of our organs and our different systems need water. First of all, the first system that comes to mind is the digestive system. What you eat has to be thoroughly mixed, this is done by the stomach, mixed with water, and also mixed with different digestive enzymes that break down the food that you just ate. Then the respiratory system. You need body fluids for your respiratory system, for the production of the mucus, etc., etc. What are body fluids primarily composed of? Water. Then the blood. The blood needs adequate balance of, it's called blood plasma. The liquid portion of your blood is called the blood plasma. The blood plasma needs to be at the proper water ratio. Okay, so the blood needs water, and many of the things in the blood have to be dissolved in it so the body can carry it. The blood can carry it to where it needs to go. So first thing, water is the solvent. It's literally the solvent of the body, whether we're talking the cells or the organs or the tissues or the blood. Second reason water is important is it is a major component of body cells and tissues. So it makes up, it's a component. That means it makes up body cells and tissues and fluids. According to many biologists, the human body is approximately 70% water by weight. You might see slightly different percentages, but it's right around 70%. You might see up to 75. But let's just talk in generalities. On average, then, your body is 70% water. This includes the cytoplasm of the cells. It includes different tissues. Blood is considered to be a tissue. It includes the fluids between all your cells. So major component of the body is actually water. Okay, that includes the cytoplasm of the cells, that includes the tissues and the fluids between them, and of course, let's go ahead and write this separately, blood plasma. And you know how vital the blood is. So the importance of water. It's the solvent of the body. It's necessary for body function. And then it's a major component that makes up body cells, tissues, fluids, and of course the blood. Yes?
What does the term solvent mean?
It's a chemistry term. Let's just say iced tea with sugar. Okay?
It's like a solution.
It's a solution. I'm talking about, yes. So in order for a lot of these chemistry, or a lot of these functions to occur, it first has to dissolve in water, and the reaction takes place in solution. If you remember from chemistry, you have two parts of a solution are the solute and the solvent. So a lot of things have to be dissolved first. So I'm literally talking in a chemistry fashion. It is literally the solvent of the body that makes up the solutions of the body. Okay? Recommendations. I already mentioned, first of all, 64 ounces of water daily on average for most people. See how I qualified that, covered my bases. On average for most people. Secondly, this does not include the water found in some beverages. So you can't include caffeinated beverages, coffee, tea, soda, or whatever you call pop. We're in the Midwest here, we call it pop. From the East Coast, I don't know what you call it, soda. Some people call it soda pop, some people call it Coke, but that's a brand, so on. That's what I'm talking about. Carbonated beverages. My third one needn't be said, but I'll say it anyways. Alcoholic beverages. Okay. Next, recommendations, 64 ounces. This doesn't include the water found in a lot of beverages, even highly sugared beverages. Okay. A third point with recommendations is what's called water intoxication. Hyponatremia. Don't worry about that word, because this is highly unlikely to occur with any of you. Water intoxication. Can you drink too much? Yes, if you drink it too quickly. And this is greater than 1 liter per hour for 4 consecutive hours. Have any of you come anywhere close to drinking that much water in that little time? Greater than 1 liter per each hour for more than 4 hours. 4 liters, that's a gallon. And this has really only happened to people running marathons that overhydrate. Yes?
I think you're asking a question.
Oh, okay. Maybe if you are in the middle of a marathon, you might drink that much, or climbing or whatever. It's highly unlikely, okay, that you're going to have water intoxication. It is possible to drink too much. But 1 liter of water is how many ounces? About 30, 32, 34?
33 points.
Okay. About 30, that's about a quart. It's a little more than a quart, so 34 ounces. That's a lot of water in an hour, but you have to do it for at least 4 hours in a row. So, gallon of water in 4 hours. Anyway, most of us are dehydrated, so that wouldn't work for us anyway. So, that's water. Next, proteins. I'm going to have to be very specific on what proteins are. Proteins. We know what water is, so what I want to do first of all is talk about what proteins are. So that would be their structure. I'm feeling back in high school, I put my capital letter for my outline, but that's how I'm going. I'm going with all of these. I'm going to talk about structure, then importance, sources, and recommendations. And we will finish proteins today and start with lipids and carbohydrates on Thursday. Let's finish proteins. Proteins, I want you to associate them with maintenance. Remember, what are the 3 things your body needs food and nutrients for? maintenance, energy, and cellular metabolism or cell function. We need it for maintenance, repair and rebuild. We need it for energy. For everything our body does needs energy, and we need it for cells to function. We need it for function. So proteins, though, they're extremely important, but one of their primary purposes is to maintain, build, repair, replace body tissues. But they are also very important in body functions. Okay, which functions? The main functions that they're going to be involved in is overall body functions, like digestion. Here's the word, enzyme. Your body digests food by breaking it down into its smaller building block molecules, and this is done through chemical reactions, and all of these reactions require protein intermediates that we call enzymes. Okay? So you have to have proteins to maintain and repair your body tissue, but you also have to have proteins for your major body functions through enzymes. Another one is your immunity. That's another overall specific body function. What are antibodies? Antibodies were secreted by the B cells, remember? And they circulate in your blood. They are made of protein. And you're not going to have an adaptive immune response that functions properly without antibodies. You're also not going to be, your vaccination won't be any use to you because your body won't be able to produce antibodies to whatever that vaccination just exposed you to. Proteins are important. Maintenance of body tissues. That means you need it to repair and replace. But it also is important in overall functions like digestion, like immunity. You've got to have protein. Now, in specifics, the structure of proteins. We're going to talk about building blocks. This is a macromolecule. The building blocks are called amino acids. As I mentioned earlier, you need to know that the building blocks of proteins are amino acids. So then if we know the building block, what are proteins? What are they? Kind of a synonym for a protein is this word here, polypeptide. Warning, here comes the science and the chemistry. Polypeptide. PEP is involved in a lot of protein naming. For example, one of the enzymes that digests protein in your small intestine is called pepsin. So that clues you into the fact that it digests what? Protein. Proteins are literally polypeptides. That means they're polymers. Polymer. Poly means many, 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 many. They're repeating chains or polymers of amino acids. Proteins are highly complex. They are polymers of proteins. That means that a protein is a long chain of hundreds, if not thousands, of amino acids. So it's got amino acids. That's protein. And then those amino acids fold up and form particular shapes that give the proteins its ability to do whatever chemical reaction is needed. Proteins. So proteins are, first of all, polypeptides. That means they're long chains of amino acids. And the second thing about them is that they fold into specific shapes. A lot of times this shape is very globular. Remember I told you when we talked about immunity that antibodies are called immunoglobulins? Okay, globulin is another key that tells you, hey, that's a protein. Okay, that's what proteins are. And remember, there were how many amino acids? 20 possible. And the sequence of these amino acids is actually determined by the sequence of the nucleotides of your DNA. So your body's able to make very specific proteins. And if you have a mutation in your DNA, it's going to disrupt your sequence, and you're going to have a protein that doesn't work or doesn't form. So proteins, importance. The two important things are just what I have up here. Number one, importance. It is the main structural component in the body. I'll give you some examples. We have a protein called, you're going to recognize these, collagen. That is a protein found in the fibers that make up your skin. Elastin, that's another protein that make up the fibers of your skin. Elastin, it makes your skin elastic. Keratin, I mentioned keratin earlier when I talked about hair, fingernails are made up of a protein called keratin. I also told you that your muscles are made of proteins. Those two particular proteins, you have two different filaments, actin and myosin. Notice, proteins, a lot of them end in IN, their name. That gives you a clue, hey, that's a protein. Another function is in blood clotting. You have fibrinogen, you have fibrin, you have prothrombin, and then thrombin. All of those are very vital proteins. So they are main structural components in the body. Secondly, they're important functioning molecules of the body. Important functioning molecules of the body. I mentioned them. Enzymes are proteins. Hormones are proteins and lipids. Hormones are the chemical messengers that control major body functions. Example of a hormone is epinephrine, commonly called adrenaline. Another hormone is insulin, which controls your body glucose. Notice the ending of the names: fibrinogen, blood clotting protein; insulin, a hormone. Okay, hormones. Also, blood proteins for clotting. And we mentioned with malaria, your red blood cell looks like a flat donut they forgot to punch the hole through. Guess what your red blood cell is? It's primarily a floating disc that contains hemoglobin. Hemoglobin, that tells you it's a protein, hemoglobin. This is the molecule that binds with oxygen and carries the oxygen throughout your blood. So without hemoglobin, you cannot have oxygen delivered to your cells. Sound kind of important? That's a protein. So proteins are vital functioning molecules. We talked about sickle cell anemia briefly. Sickle cell anemia is a mutation in the gene that codes for hemoglobin. So the hemoglobin protein is malformed, and so we don't get these nice disc-shaped red blood cells. The red blood cells literally look like a sickle instead of a nice shaped donut. They're very inefficient in carrying oxygen because their hemoglobin is malformed. Vital functioning molecules, and they're all what? Proteins. Okay, so we will pick up with this tomorrow.